let's talk about John Keats. He's one of the most famous poets to ever write in English, for sure. But his story, it's not just about genius. It's also a story of almost unbelievable pain and tragedy.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? It's this paradox that sits at the very heart of his work. How does a guy who lost literally everything, whose life was just one sad story after another, how does he turn around and create art about perfection and eternity that we're still talking about today? To figure that out, we have to start with the pain.
You see, to really get Keats's poetry, you first have to understand the loss that just haunted his entire life. And I'm not talking about one bad thing happening. It was just this constant, relentless shadow over him. I mean, look at how fast this all happens. It's just staggering. He's only 8 years old when he loses his father in a freak accident. Then, by the time he's 14, his mother is gone, taken by tuberculosis. And then, at just 23, he has to nurse his younger brother, Tom, only to watch him die from the exact same disease. For Keats, loss wasn't some abstract idea. It was his day-to-day reality.
And this number, 25. That's how old John Keats was when he died. Just 25. His entire short life was lived under the cloud of grief and, knowing his own time was probably short, too.
So what do you do when you're faced with that much pain? Well, for Keats, the answer wasn't the stable, practical career he was actually trained for. Nope. He found his escape in the world of words and imagination. You'd think he would have gone for the safe option, and he almost did. He had a really promising future in medicine. He trained as a surgeon, even got his license to be an apothecary. But there was this other pull, something he just couldn't ignore. So in 1816, he walked away from it all to be a poet. And what a huge risk that was. At first, it totally backfired. Critics absolutely tore his early poems apart, but he just kept going. And then, 1819 happens. It's right after his brother Thomas died. He's grieving. He's falling in love with his neighbor, Fanny Brawne, and something just incredible happens. Keats enters this period of creative genius that was so explosive, so brilliant, that we now just call it the Great Year.
And the stuff he wrote in this 1 year, it's basically a greatest hits album. Ode on a Grecian Urn, Ode to a Nightingale, to Autumn, the list goes on and on. He wrote almost every single poem that made him famous while he was battling grief and his own failing health. It was like all the pressure of his life just squeezed out this pure, perfect art.
And to really understand what was going on in his head, we've got to zoom in on one of those masterpieces from that year, Ode on a Grecian Urn. Seriously, this poem is the key that unlocks everything.
Okay, so the premise is pretty simple, but it's incredibly deep. Keats is just standing there, looking at an ancient Greek vase, and he starts talking to it, like it's a historian made of marble that can tell stories about the past. He starts asking it all these questions about the scenes that are frozen on its surface.
And he zeroes in on two main scenes. First, there's this really passionate, energetic chase. You've got a young man who's about to kiss a girl, and they're frozen forever in that perfect moment right before. Then there's a second, more serious scene, a whole town of people leading a calf to be sacrificed, a religious moment captured for all time.
And right here, this is where we get to the heart of it all. The poem isn't just about a pretty vase. It's about the huge, powerful clash between our messy, painful, short lives and the perfect, unchanging world that you find in art.
And this was the conflict Keats lived every single day. He knew that in real life, passion fades. It leaves you, as he puts it, with a burning forehead and a parching tongue. Heartbreak, sickness, death. But on the urn, that love is flawless. It is forever warm and still to be enjoyed. The people are always young, the leaves on the trees never fall from the branches. Art has this perfection that real life just can't touch.
And this one line, oh man, this line just says it all. He's talking to the guy on the urn, and he says, "Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair." So he'll never actually get the kiss, right? But he also never has to face the disappointment. She'll never get old, and his love for her will never, ever die. For a guy who lost everyone he cared about, this idea of an eternal, perfect love must have been everything. So the whole poem keeps building, and it's heading toward this massive, profound conclusion, a statement that people have been arguing about and celebrating for 200 years. It's the urn's final message to all of us. After all this questioning and observing, Keats basically asks the urn, okay, so what's the point? What can you, this cold piece of pottery, possibly teach us, the living who are all going to die? What's the secret? And this is the urn's timeless reply. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. For Keats, this was the ultimate answer. The perfect, lasting beauty you find in a work of art is the only real truth we can ever hold on to in our messy, short lives. In a world of so much pain, creating something beautiful, that's a true, permanent act. It was his answer to all the suffering. But here's the heartbreaking irony. The immortality he found in art couldn't save the artist. Just as Keats was hitting the peak of his creative powers, his own body started to fail him, echoing the exact same fate as his mother and his brother.
So in February 1820, just a few months after his great year, he coughed up blood. And as a trained surgeon, he knew exactly what that meant. His fate was sealed. His doctors told him he had to go to a warmer climate, so he sailed to Rome, leaving Fanny Braun behind, knowing he would never see her again. He died there just a few months later.
This is the epitaph he wanted for his own tombstone. He didn't even want his name on it, just these words. He died believing he was a failure, that everything he had worked for was as temporary and meaningless as a name written on the surface of the water. And that brings us right back to where we started. Keats felt his legacy would be temporary, just washed away by time. But looking back now, 200 years later, reading the words he created in the middle of so much pain, we have to ask ourselves, was he right? Or did he, just like his Grecian urn, create a truth in a beauty that became a friend to every generation that came after?